in Pretoria. Govan, good morning to you. So, just detail for us some of the organizations that form part of this march. This march has been dubbed the People's March. Who's going to form part of this march?
That's right, Ole. This is the People's March, and it's essentially being organized by the Congress of South African Trade Unions, along with the South African Communist Party, the South African National Council of Civics, and, of course, some civil society organizations that have come out here to campaign against the number of issues which you have mentioned. Chief amongst them, though, is the e-tolling issue, which has been brought back into the fore by the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, who during his medium-term policy statement explained that the government supports the user pay principle. Now, this has been taken to be an endorsement of the e-tolling system and has riled up the Gauteng ANC as well as several civil society organizations. Only with me now I have the leader of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. That's the organization formerly known as the Opposition to Tolling Alliance, Wayne Duvenage. And Wayne, you've done extensive campaigning on the e-tolling issue. But I would just like to see or hear from you, what was your reaction to the Finance Minister's comments around the support of the user pay principle for e-tolling?
Well, we were quite amused by the statement. First of all, nobody can deny that user pay is a rational policy. But when you try and apply it in the e-tolling scheme, this drive now, pay later, and you have a situation which we always could see was going to happen, and that is now 75% of users aren't paying. It is no longer a user pay scheme, even though it's supposed to be designed to be a user pay scheme. And we are calling for government to scrap the system because it has so many flaws in it. It was never going to work in this environment. There are other ways. We know we have to pay for these roads. There are far more efficient ways to do that. And so now it's time to pull the plug on this failed scheme.
Yeah, and you've also spoken about the failed scheme, and we've had full years of tolling in Gauteng at the moment. But what are the numbers actually saying in terms of how many people have paid, and how much support have civil society organizations received from the public in terms of boycotting the system?
Well, it is one of the most successful civil disobedience campaigns, certainly in our new democracy. And what we see now after 4 full years of e-toll collections up until March this year, or attempted collections, we see that SANRAL's revenue over these 4 years up until March 2018 was about 67 billion rand, just over 67 billion rand, of which 23 billion rand was going to come from the e-toll scheme. And had they've got all that money, that's what they intended to collect, was about 34% of their revenue from 1% of their road surfaces. And that now is no longer a user pay scheme. That is a users are being abused and are asked to overpay for a scheme. Fortunately, they've stood their ground. They've forced SANRAL to have to write off about 13 billion rand. There's probably another 6 billion rand outstanding, which we doubt they'll ever collect. And they've only been able to collect 15%, or about 3.5 billion rand, of what they've invoiced the public in that period, that 4-year period. So that's been a very successful campaign.
Thank you so much, Wayne. And of course, OUTA has taken part in several marches across Gauteng against the e-tolling system. But this march today is also about a number of other issues which involve the cost of data, the cost of living, the VAT increase, which we experienced this year in South Africa, as well as the fuel hikes. Now, we know that in Gauteng, the ANC has been campaigning for an economic stimulus package to be tailored to the people of the province, which would offset some of the rising costs from the VAT, the fuel price increases. But here I'm joined with Josienso Ramakgopa, the former mayor of the city of Tshwane and the chairperson of the ANC in the Tshwane region. So I would just like to know from you, what was your reaction to the seeming endorsement of the e-tolling system by the finance minister, and what are the main issues which you would like to raise in today's march?
Well, I guess it's regrettable, and it does make a good reading for the political optics that in the public domain there seems to be confrontation on what is in fact the stance with regards to e-tolls. But government is expressing its view. The ANC in Gauteng since 2014 we have been calling for the scrapping of the e-tolls because we don't think that it supports economic growth. We think that it disproportionately affects the poor. It undermines their ability to participate in the marketplace. small emerging entrepreneurs, cost of doing business gets to be increased. So in a small landmass like Gauteng, it's not ideal to have e-tolls, because in essence you are penalizing, taxing commuting traffic, people going to work, hospital, taking children to school. So we're not in principle opposed to tolling, but on the major freeway, trunk routes, connecting major towns, that's okay. But in this space, we don't think that it is ideal. So, and we also think that it goes against the grain and, in fact, the underlying principles of the stimulus package. While the stimulus package talks about reprioritization and looking for new money to inject the economy so that there's growth, but on the other hand, this set of measures, so the VAT increases, regular fuel hikes, and here I'm talking about the levy component of the fuel price, the issues around the cost of data, undermines the very essence of the stimulus package. And that's why we are going to the highest office in the land to express our view, to say that if the stimulus package were to work, we need to take the totality of these interventions to be able to take the country forward.
Just to be clear then, are you as the Gauteng ANC telling residents of Gauteng to continue boycotting their e-tolls bills?
Yes, it amounts to that. So we can't be saying on the one hand that they were opposed to it and say you must continue to pay. So we are of that opinion, and you'll see in the memorandum that is incorporated, because the threat and the assault by Sanral on motorists who are using these roads to say that if you don't pay, we're going to make it difficult for you to renew your vehicle car license, make it difficult for you to get vehicle insurance. It amounts to a provocation. And if this continues unabated for a longer period of time, it undermines the very legitimacy of the state. The state derives its legitimacy from the people.
Mr. Ramaphosa, you're also the leader of the opposition in Tshwane, and you're taking the ANC to the national elections. You'll be campaigning. How much do you think that the e-tolls issue and the cost of living and the standard of living for South Africans currently will affect the ANC support? Would you find it harder to convince people to keep supporting the ANC, considering the national government's interventions that have led to this higher cost of living?
Well, just a bit of correction. So I've left the regional space. I'm in the province, but the question is still valid. Well, let me say the following, that when we enter the issues around e-tolls or any other issue around cost of living, it is not necessarily about the elections, but it's about the correctness of the demand. So we'll continue to pursue that demand. And yes, the ANC has got ambitions of retaining state power in the province and nationally, so that we are able to prosecute the goals of a national democratic society. And we think that continue to be on the side of people raising the issues around the popular public discontent about the public interest issue, it gives us a political mileage. Yes, it's political currency in the context of electoral politics, and yes, we think that advancing the interest of the electorate and the people will bring confidence back to on the ANC.
Thank you so much. That's Kgosientsho Ramaphosa, the former mayor of Tshwane. I am also joined by the current mayor of Ekurhuleni, Mr. Mzwandile Masina, who is leading the ANC in that region as well. So could you just tell me what is your position on the e-tolling system in Ekurhuleni, and are you also encouraging people in your city not to pay the tolls?
Well, we are encouraging people not to pay for e-tolls because it's the cost of living in Gauteng and in South Africa is relatively very high. So we are here as members of the ANC to say to the ANC-led government that we need to reconsider some of our stance. We are raising quite a range of issues, including the issues of data, including the issues of fuel, including the issues of e-toll, which is we are very clear that our people they embarked on their own on civil disobedience on the issues of e-toll. We can't, as a leader of society, not listen to the masses of our people. So we're saying to the ANC-led government, let's listen to the masses of our people, because the cost of living is too high, and our people are saying no to e-tolls, and we are supporting. We stand by our people as the ANC in Gauteng.
Okay, and as the ANC in Gauteng, do you believe that there has been some doublespeak from the ANC as a party, where we found the finance minister making one remark on e-tolling, the transport minister, Mr. Blade Nzimande, saying that the system cannot simply be abandoned due to the debt that has been incurred in setting it up, and of course the Gauteng ANC now clearly saying that they want the entire system scrapped. Is this doublespeak from the party?
Well, it's not doublespeak. Remember that the user pay principle was long adopted. But how the e-tolls were introduced, there was not sufficient public consultation, firstly. But secondly, we believe that there are many areas where the ANC-led government could consider savings and they are able to pay, because we don't want to default on sovereign debt as it is. But we are saying that let the government led by the ANC, by President Ramaphosa, begin to look into those areas where we could be savings, so that we can spare us, because the public is very clear that the e-tolls are dangerous, they are not going to pay, and it's going to set a new precedent in the country where we don't follow the laws of the country, and we are very clear that from where we're sitting, the government must reconsider not just only the e-tolls but also the cost of basic food, the VAT increase. We think that it was unfortunate, and the data issue is another issue that we are looking at. So all those issues combined, for us, we are saying we're here to say enough is enough. We stand by the people of Gauteng.
Mr. Messina, while I have you, just a final question. It's been a tumultuous week for the Home Affairs Minister, Malusi Gigaba, and you were one of the first people to publicly issue your support of Mr. Gigaba after he revealed on Twitter that there was a blackmail attempt against him. Seeing as how the week has progressed and his loss in the courts to appeal the Fireblade judgment, do you think that Minister Malusi Gigaba should resign?
Well, it will be up to him as an individual, but where I am quite perturbed as an individual is that we have spoke as a country against the behavior of the Guptas when they were landing in the airport. We now have a family that is forcing a minister to give them permission to have a terminal in the international airport, which is a national key point. It is unfortunate. We are not having a discourse in that regard, but rather we are obsessed whether or not Minister Gigaba must resign. Where I'm sitting is that the Oppenheimer family, they are arrogant, and the government must reconsider its stance if they have given them such permission to have an open terminal, because we are all equal as citizens. We don't want to be ruled by people of money. We want to be ruled by governments in this case. And Minister Gigaba has been saying that he has never given permission for this terminal to be opened. He is being forced through the courts, which in my view are untransformed. They are forcing him to using the minutes that because I can't have a meeting with you. You give me the minutes of our meeting, and then I acknowledge that I've received them, because in our offices we have a range of those people who get to do those things. So those minutes are the ones that are now forcing the minister to have lied in public, when in fact he has never given such a permission for the terminal to be opened. I would be watching very closely how the ANC is going to react on this matter, but I think that Minister Gigaba is treated unfairly in as far as that matter is concerned. But the ANC-led government is capable of taking its own decision about the future of the minister.
Thank you so much. That's the Mayor of Ekurhuleni, Mzwandile Masina, still reiterating his support of the Home Affairs Minister, Malusi Gigaba, but also explaining the main issues of this People's March to the Union buildings. As you can see, only the crowds here have started to increase in number, and we're about to see a lot more people that are coming through. We've actually seen more civil society groups that have arrived here now, and they're joining the ANC as well as Cosatu members and the South African National Civics Organization. We're expecting over 100 people to take part in this march, and we should be leaving Burgers Park, going down Lily and Ngoyi in the capital city towards the Union buildings within the next 2 hours.